So Pikmin 2, here we go. Game shows up, hey, what up? So first things first, since the prequel's primary goal was not to be a game but rather to be a sort of tech demo, a proof of concept with just enough glue to stick a price tag to, this game doesn't have to do any of that. The GameCubes have been moved, you don't have to be a salesman anymore. Pikmin 2 sits down and says, oh, okay, I have all of these technically complex mechanics and this interesting and unique design that doesn't really fit any genre and this unnecessarily deep world and thick aesthetic. How do I, make an actual game out of this? Where do I go from here? Do I abandon the arcade scores, commit to either strategy or action? And you know what the motherfucker does? Yeah, it drops a few things, sure, but it adds to the jambalaya that is its composition the building blocks of a roguelike. Pikmin 2, among many, many other things, is a freaking dungeon crawler. Just because why the hell not? So first, what was dropped? Well, first, I now have the vocabulary to properly explain the gameplay of Pikmin 1, so let's start there. Let me just shine my flashlight on a boy for a second. Patrick Holleman is the founder of the GameDesignForum.com and author of multiple books about game design. He's been at this stuff for over 7 years, madman. Very recently, he's launched a project to make his writing more accessible by adapting it to video presentations in a series he's calling the Game Design Extracts. And in his first episode, which you should absolutely check out, he explains 3 eras of video game design. The second era, following the arcade one, is called the Composite Era, and is defined by games that mixed multiple genres and directed the player's attention towards one and then the other intermittently through design, but more significantly, allowed for players to use their skills in one genre to solve problems of another, as he puts it. So, what is Pikmin 1, finally? It's a composite game composed of both action-adventure and real-time strategy gameplay, which, okay, is a whole other can of worms because both are technically composite structures themselves, but as we should know, since it's one of my favorites, the composite design pattern allows for composites to be made up of components of either concrete leaves or the other composites. So, we're good. In Pikmin, you had moments of intense action, but you also had points where you had to sit down and solve a quick puzzle, and you also had moments where you had to apply strategy and rely on more than quick thinking and reflexes to take out enemies. But you could use brute force in place of careful planning in some situations at the risk of more Pikmin losses. You could also use advanced strategies or even puzzle-solving tools to handle basic combat encounters more efficiently. But Pikmin also had this weird arcade-type scoring system that didn't jive well with either the action-adventure or RTS genres, and absolutely didn't jig with the whole composite thing. It existed as something outside of the gameplay, something tacked on at the end of the game with little reason and the mildest context. As we know, Pikmin started as a game about moving things. Where this whole 30-day shenanigan came from, whoa. So Pikmin 2, realizing it's time to be a real game, first things first, drops the arcade crap, except not really. See, unlike the first game where the goal is to collect the items as quickly as possible under a maximum 30-day time limit to get the best score, Pikmin 2 is about collecting them at your own pace with no rush. The game explicitly declares this to you. It straight says, yo, nobody's gonna be on your ass if you're taking too long. Though, they did manage to include an arcade-like scoring intelligently, once again, contextualized by story, but more importantly, totally dismissible if you don't care. In Pikmin 2, the idea is that your company is 10,000 hot pocket dollars in debt, so you gotta go to this alien planet to collect treasures which each have a monetary value and reduce your debt by that amount. Now, all of the treasures in the game combined come out to way more than the 10k required, so what that means is that the 10k is your checkpoint, your arcade goal, and once you reach it, the game presents you with a high score for it before allowing you to continue playing and collect the rest of the treasure with 0 changes to gameplay. Again, once getting them all, presenting you with another score for that new checkpoint. This change obviously goes hand in hand with the removal of the hard time limit. In the last game, 30 days were enough to apply just enough pressure to light a fire under your ass. But if you care, if you're going for a speedrun already to do a 100% debt recovery goal as quickly as possible, your butt's already on fire. You don't need the game to push you, and forcing that sort of thing puts off players that just want to explore this beautiful world, time taken. So, adios to the clock. The game really has no need for it. It doesn't motivate anyone that wouldn't already be motivated without it. But, as you should remember, there was one justifiable reason for a time limit in the first game. It made for a failure state. Without the chance of running out of time, a player of Pikmin 1 would have no choice but to win. There's no way to lose, no way to fail, no pressure or tension at all. Playing Pikmin would be like twiddling your thumbs. It'd just be something you do, not a game. So Pikmin 2 removing the time limit, doesn't that mean you can't lose? How could a combo game of action-adventure and strategy work without a failure state? It couldn't, so they must have come up with something, right? How do you lose in Pikmin 2? Well, believe it or not, you actually can't. There is no failure state in Pikmin 2, nothing akin to not getting all the ship pieces and letting Olimar die, not even a suboptimal form of success like completing the game without all of the optional ship parts in the last game. If you throw enough time at it, you will eventually complete this game. There's nothing you can do about it. Except, remember how in Pikmin 1 we said that Pikmin were, in essence, your health, and that growing more and collecting more was akin to taking a health pack or respawning? That was cool. Perfect example right there of the sorts of things you get when your game combines action and strategy. A resource becomes your health, your offense, your defense. That's cool. Jared, stop liking my tweets while I'm recording, and Matt, stop sending me DMs on Discord. What if, though, you added another genre to the already unique mix? A genre categorized by a permanence in loss, by the disability to predict and plan with certainty. A genre with rules so at odds with the already established gameplay loop that if you wanted to implement it, you need to do so in segments fully separated from the rest of the game. What if you turned off the Pikmin in Pikmin? And I hate to tease you again over this, but we'll get into it in a bit, because there's a subject to discuss that I don't know how to segue into, and honestly is one of the first things anyone should bring up when discussing Pikmin 2. See, everything I've said so far about how they remove the scoring system and the time limit and the player still feeling motivated is mostly true. I just can't help but have this little ounce of doubt in my mind that I would have been as motivated if I were, say, collecting random ship parts in this game again. You see, the treasures in Pikmin 2 are really special. They're not random necessary bits, and they're not useful collectibles with any function in the game. What's really interesting is that they're all real things, and most of them are placed products. It's not really clear exactly how this happened, but by one way or another, Pikmin 2 ended up being the host to probably more instances of product placement than anything ever that has ever existed. There are countless brands represented here. The advertisement was even localized to present players with icons and items most likely to be familiar to them. In Japan, nobody's going to see a Skippy peanut butter or an assortment of Duracell batteries, right? But in North America, I will. Now, in any other game, this sort of crap would have been a big slap in the face. But the thing is, Pikmin takes place on a post-apocalyptic Earth, so while finding random but common human tools and items is fun and immersive, recognizing a branded item, something you see every day, like your favorite yogurt, for instance, that will always evoke a stronger response. The items in this game being domestic rather than alien like in the last makes you personally value them. In Pikmin 1, you were motivated because of a time limit. In Pikmin 2, you're motivated because the treasures you're after, although optional, are interesting. They're a fun surprise, and you don't know what they are until you find them. And then when you do find them and bring them back, you get all this fun flavor text where Olimar tries to make sense of the item and the AI in your ship tries to generate sales pitches for them. See, there are two types of motivation. Intrinsic. Reasonings for things we do that have to do with those things and those things alone. AKA, I make videos because I like to, it's fun and fulfills some desire I have to teach and entertain people. AKA, it's the journey, not the destination. And there is extrinsic motivation. Reasons for things we do that have to do with the outcome of doing those things. AKA, I make videos because I make $20 and ad revenue peanuts out of them. AKA, the ends justify the means. In my case, for instance, it should be clear which is my true motivation. At this point in the script/research phase, I'd been at it for probably about 7 hours, and the VO that I'm doing right now, the time I'm spending now, and the editing I'm going to be doing in between this exact moment and the one you're in now as a viewer, that's a lot of hours of personal time spent. If I were the sort of person who was mostly motivated extrinsically, I'd be spending my weekends doing freelance web development and making a killing, but hey, that's not me. And it turns out, it's actually not most people. In similar studies of something called the overjustification hypothesis on subjects from different age groups, it's been shown that when it comes to tasks that we are already intrinsically motivated to do out of personal interest, for example, kids drawing or adults quitting smoking, it was shown that conditioning people to collect rewards for these activities actually decreased their results. Kids who were told they would receive $1 for each drawing they produced stopped drawing as much and found drawing to be less fun than kids who either didn't receive a reward or weren't told they would receive one. When you know exactly what it is you're going to get out of an activity you already have fun doing, you'll do it less. Let's find an example in gaming. I like Breath of the Wild a lot. One of my favorite things about it was how it took a step back from the old school long and drawn out dungeons with multiple serial puzzle rooms by disconnecting all of them and spreading each room around the overworld to be challenged at the player's leisure. I loved that. I mean, like I said, I don't think it makes sense to put a bunch of functionally disconnected puzzle rooms in a single building together. They shouldn't be in the same infrastructure unless they connect or interact in some meaningful ways, which is why I also like that the only dungeons in the game are exactly that, large spaces with no clear room divisions where the puzzles involve moving the whole structure. But anyways, that's a topic for another video. So raise your hand if this applies to you. At the beginning of the game I was weak and needed spirit orbs to strengthen myself, and I also found most of the shrines to be a lot of fun. But eventually that wore off. Just like the kids being paid to draw and the smokers being rewarded to quit, the shrines which I was intrinsically motivated to do started feeling like work, because I knew exactly what sorts of rewards lie in each one. Tie that to the fact that rewards started being less and less valuable to me as I grew stronger, and I got to a point where after finding a new shrine, I'd unlock it to turn it into a fast travel point, but I wouldn't enter it right away. This is something I'm pretty sure we've all done, if not in Breath of the Wild then in some similarly structured open world game. It's the same reason myself and others found Mario Odyssey to be a complete chore. Things that would probably normally be just fine ended up feeling boring. We felt less motivated, all because the reward for a million different fun things was always exactly the same boring thing. So what does this have to do with Pikmin? Well, the thing is, a lot of games, especially collectathons, which... Jesus Christ, is Pikmin a collectathon too? Or can that just fall under the adventure side of action-adventure? Yeah, you know what? It can. So these sorts of games often need to extrinsically motivate you, by giving you some reason to collect so many things, for instance. If I had Sonic footage to throw on screen, I'd probably say in Sonic you're motivated to collect rings because the outcome of 100 is a new life, and the outcome of any is a free hit without death. You don't collect rings because it's fun. If I had footage of any relevant 3D platformer, I'd probably say that in those games you often collect things because reaching a certain amount will unlock a new area. In Metal Gear Solid 5, which I do have footage of, you collect soldiers because it gets them out of your way and strengthens your base, not because it's fun. In fact, it's not fun at all. Once you teach your dog to do it, your dog does it. Otherwise, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Oh, just a heads up, this is the exact moment in the VO process that I realized that the coincidence that Matt and Jared both interrupted my VO is the perfect thing, because I have footage of both of them pretending to be sniped. I just realized that I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna put that. I didn't know what I was gonna do with this footage because it was supposed to be for a video that I'm probably not doing, but I just realized I can make it like I'm killing them. Oh, it's too good. Sometimes I feel like the coincidences that lead to like these perfect moments I have in my videos are like justification or like evidence of intelligent design, because like I feel like in pure chaos you can't get stuff like this. I mean, Kevin Smith had a heart attack and he lived. What can you even say about that? Guy's like 5 million pounds. In this game though, because each treasure is unique and genuinely interesting, the player becomes intrinsically motivated to do it. In Pikmin 2, you collect treasure for the sake of collecting treasure, because the items found and the flavor text you unlocked for bringing them back are rewards in and of themselves. The task is fun, so you want to do it for the sake of itself. Like, I don't care that Nova Canoe costs 80 picto-bucks. I don't care that it's Nova Canoe, that it's a kiwi. I care about what Olimar and the ship have to say about the kiwi. I don't care what it does, I don't care what impact it has on the debt I'm supposed to be recovering. The value the treasure has to me, the player of the game, is the treasure itself. Nova Canoe, what I'm saying right now is you're an absolute treasure and I love you. Even the special treasures that you can extract power-ups from, it doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. It's a surprise reward that doesn't over-justify the treasure itself. Wow, I can punch dudes now? Fine, great. I don't care, I wasn't expecting this, I don't really want this, but you know what, I'll take it. That's what it is. I'll take it. Now, one of the reasons that overjustification theorem is said to hold true, and the reason people get less motivated to do things they already like when they get rewarded for it, is because of cognitive dissonance. See, your brain is a giant neural network. It's literally a graph. Okay, I know this sounds like a joke, but I'm not joking. All your brain is a set of nodes and weighted edges that trains itself based on inputs and outputs and feedback. Except the network doesn't just train forwards. There's also backpropagation, which goes from a set of outputs and feedback to rebalance the network backwards and determine what the perceived inputs should have been. This is basically what cognitive dissonance is. Your brain will construct for itself beliefs to justify outcomes or actions you're doing, to get consistency and relieve stress. This is cool information for you to have, but other than being a segue into another type of dissonance, it serves no greater purpose in this video. Ludo-narrative dissonance is when what you're doing in the game ain't what the game thinks you're doing, and it's also something that doesn't exist in Pikmin 2. In Pikmin 2, Olimar and you and Louis did I forget to mention that the game gives you a whole second playable character that can lead his own group of Pikmin and be switched to at any time, which opens up the possibilities you have within the 15-minute time span of an in-game day by allowing you to multitask via 2 instances of agency in the game at the same time in real time? Crap. Well, in Pikmin 2, you have a whole second playable character that can lead his own group of Pikmin and be switched to at any time, which opens up the possibilities you have within the 15-minute time span of an in-game day by allowing you to multitask via 2 instances of agency in the game at the same time in real time, which is really cool. Also, if you use it well, it can make combat cool. Also, it's used as the solution to a puzzle during one boss fight and dungeon. But anyways, the story of Pikmin 2 is that you're collecting treasure, and the story of the play of Pikmin 2, the story of what you're actually doing in the game, is also that you're collecting treasure. When the things you're collecting in the game are valuable to you personally for the same reason they're valuable to the characters, that's, I don't know, it's pretty cool. Pikmin 2 is one of few games with a story that resonates with the player's mindset in-game. Now yes, I'm aware that if we were talking about sound, the correct word would be harmony, but because to resonate can be interchanged with to inspire, and because the definition in this context doesn't interfere with anything else and reads to have particular meaning or importance for someone, to affect or appeal to someone in a personal or emotional way, and because that's basically exactly the ledge which intrinsic motivation can use to step into your mind, I'm gonna be an asshole right here, guys, and I'm gonna say Pikmin 2 is ludo-narratively resonant. Shoot me. And this is also why I think it's one of the most immersive games out there. Forget all the incredible environmental storytelling this game puts on display, forget all of the unnecessarily well-written text content, the day-night cycle, the world, the enemies, the fact alone that there is no conflict with what's happening in the game and what you're doing in the game, the fact that finding a piece of a pickle jar in the game is no different than digging one up in real life. This is the reason that I don't play Pikmin often, but whenever I do, I can't put it down. It just swallows you whole, it immerses you completely in its charm, it's the sort of world that you could live in, it's real. Look, I like keeping things straight and strict around here. I don't do this mushy-wushy, but there is no game I've ever had this sort of connection with and also be able to explain exactly why. There's no curtain to pull back, there's nothing, but it always gets me. Being surprised by treasure after treasure never gets old. Pikmin 2 is like this poison that just gets to you in the best way. But the thing is, for this all to work so well, there has to be a hell of a lot of treasure, and with only 4 explorable areas in the game, 3 of which, by the way, were recycled and modified areas from the last game, we have another question to add to our growing list of questions that we've been accumulating throughout this video. How's Pikmin 2 a roguelike? How do you lose? And where is all the treasure placed as not to crowd up? The answer to all of these, Zach, give me a drumroll please! Finally, the biggest and most important gameplay change in the sequel is the caves. Around each of the few maps in the game, yes, there are treasures lying about which require action and puzzle and strategy to get to and recover. But similarly distributed, there are entrances to caves, which are basically dungeons and are what I'm going to call them for the rest of this video. Each of these dungeons, aside from some tutorial ones, is a gauntlet of intense and focused challenges, testing the player's skills in the game's already explored composite genres. However, dungeon play modifies a few of the game's rules. Number 1, the time limit stops. While above ground, a day's 15 minutes are all you have to get as much done as possible. Here, that's not the case. Many of these dungeons take upwards of an hour or two to complete on your first go, assuming you actually complete them and come out alive, which we'll get to, but time is frozen inside the dungeon. Once you exit, you return to the overworld that brought you there at the exact time of day that you entered, which is important because if you enter a dungeon in the early day, this extra time is afforded to you to recover the losses you sustained inside it. Because, rule change number 2, inside a dungeon, the Pikmin you enter with are all you have. Once you go in, you lose access to the onions that reside outside by your ship. These onions are responsible for 3 of the game's most important mechanics: withdrawing, reproducing, and depositing Pikmin. Without access to the onions, what you came in with is all you have. You can't just pull out more poker buddies whenever you want, and you also can't convert downed enemies into new seeds. This immediately plays with your motivations. In the main game, sustaining a few losses during a fight is okay because as long as you win, you'll be able to bring back the body, which is normally enough to make more dudes than what you lost. Now though, killing enemies is less rewarding, so it's in your best interest to avoid them whenever possible, or better yet, find alternative ways to kill them, either by manually going out as the captain and punching them, something you never did in the first game, or by cheesing some sort of mechanic in the game. God knows the enemies will take advantage of those same things to kill you, so depending on how they're placed in a dungeon, some enemies may be necessary to take out to clear a path, or might need to be defeated to drop a treasure, but other times it's possible to identify enemies or entire wings of caves that can be ignored. Unlike above ground, you don't need to explore every nook and cranny. Only some. The other consequence of the onions being gone, something you might have not thought of, is that you can't safely store your Pikmin away in them, meaning you have to carefully use both playable captains and the layouts of the dungeons to store your Pikmin away in physical safe spaces. And with as many dungeons as this game has, you know there's at least one that plays with each of these disabilities specific to the lack of onions, especially the last one, which is really, really interesting, but we'll get there. So the game throws you into these secret environments with tons of challenges and levels and treasures and expects you to overcome them with a permanency to loss in effect. This is how you lose in Pikmin 2. You can't lose the whole game, but while in dungeons there's this concept of micro-loss that you can experience. Losing a Pikmin in a dungeon is a loss. It permanently reduces your health, attack power, and even effectiveness at collecting treasures, because remember, each item may take a different number of Pikmin to carry it, or sometimes specific types of Pikmin, most often water ones, to carry it. So losing too many Pikmin is another loss. Each cave kind of has a point of no return, where if you've lost that many Pikmin, you won't be able to 100% it this time and will need to revisit it later. For instance, the treasures dropped by the final boss of the game take 30 Pikmin each to carry, greater than the 29 I finished with. I hate this game. Also though, losing flowers is a type of loss. See, Pikmin have 3 forms: leaf, bud, and flower. Flower guys are quicker, faster, and stronger too, and they're what you're gonna use to overwhelm some dudes. Except there are some enemy types in the game which don't have any interest in eating your Pikmin, but instead want to revert their flowers back to leaves. Allowing your whole squad to go down to the basic form is almost equivalent to losing a third of your health and power. Making them weaker means other hungry enemies will be able to chase them with greater ease. Also, some of these enemies will have an animation where they shake your Pikmin off, which is another way they can lose their flowers. So losing flowers is a type of loss that you have to consider and try to avoid as well. A type of loss that doesn't matter above ground because with unlimited days you can just plant a ton of seeds and farm new flower Pikmin for a while if you want. This is not an option underground. All you have is what you came with and what the dungeon may provide. Pikmin 2, it's a survival game too. The only way to recover flowers is when the game occasionally throws you a rope, gives you an egg or something which may drop sweet nectar, but other times drops spiders or bomb rocks on you which can wipe out massive portions of your guys if you're not paying attention. As you could guess, sometimes I don't pay attention. The dungeons do this all the time. You'll be multiple levels and minutes in before the game throws at you a bunch of different instant kills. For instance, frogs. These guys, unlike some other enemies, don't have a chewing phase to their attack, which allows you to recover Pikmin. Instead, they have a large one-hit squash that, if you make one mistake, will destroy your chances at completing the dungeon. Seeing one of these dudes 5 or 6 levels deep is a major psych out. So, you might be asking, how is this fair? How can the game get away with tricking and bullying you like this? How could it allow itself to expect players to learn things and be introduced to new enemy types and mechanics in an already tense environment? Well, the thing is, dungeons don't have to be fair. Look, on their own, none of the dungeon puzzles are particularly difficult, but stringing so many together with no way out or to reset, by giving damage and loss an immutability that isn't present above ground, they increase the probability that you'll make a mistake while not thinking straight. By overwhelming you with challenge and multiple tasks, you'll make a mistake like forgetting to monitor your Pikmin demolishing a wall and allow them to become ambushed and killed. In a dungeon, the difficulty is a function of how many Pikmin you have left, which decreases with time, and it looks like this. Above ground, your difficulty looks more like a straight line, because you have the safety net of the onions. The reason this works, the reason the dungeons are allowed to be so inhumane and long and cruel, is that if you totally fail, you reach that point of no return. If you don't have enough Pikmin to collect treasure or beat a boss, it's not as offensive, because when you leave, you go back to this. You can spend as much time as you want hunting wildlife to strengthen your army and tackle a dungeon that bit you again and again. There's no 30-day limit. There's nothing limiting you at all. You can't lose above ground. That's the cushion you fall back on when you fail one of almost infinitely many ways inside a dungeon. Or, you could be an idiot and accidentally take one of the chicken exits when you meant to go deeper. Whoops. This, and not the chicken exit, but the cushioning thing, is the reason Pikmin 2 can throw you a special dungeon with rematches against every boss in the freaking game, and you can't complain. You have as many attempts as you like, and if you get to the end in a state unfit for the final challenge, it's not such a big deal. And it's not the sort of thing that's going to demotivate you and be like, I'm not going to go back just for another spirit orb or another frickin' banana moon. You don't know what the final treasure is going to be. It could be literally anything, so you want to go back. You're motivated to go back and take another go at it. And what's really, really cool is that every follow-up visit to a dungeon will be different than the last, which I didn't actually know until failing a few, because the dungeons are actually randomly generated. Each level always has the same enemies and treasures, but their placement and the building blocks making up the level's layout and even the freaking music is procedurally generated. So just because you did it before doesn't mean you can make a beeline for the exit, because now the location of the exit has changed. Maybe it'll be to your benefit, or maybe you're just going to be surrounded by enemies as soon as you spawn in. Pikmin 2 has embedded in it a randomly generated dungeon crawler where you go around committing merciless war crimes and amassing bodies of fallen enemies, all for a giant can of apple juice. And your consequence for failure is being sent back to another game, basically just Pikmin 1 but without a day limit. It's a really good setup that motivates you to complete it for yourself, but also doesn't take away your ability to just spend a few days growing your strength. It's for these reasons that the dungeons are 100% fair. Pikmin 2 is a practically bulletproof game with no flaws, and I love it. Except now, that's not true. Pikmin 2 does a lot, and almost everything it does is perfect with the exception of a single thing. A single thing that in many cases ruins an otherwise nearly perfect experience. Did I forget to mention that Pikmin 2 adds 2 new Pikmin types? Pikmin 2 adds 2 new Pikmin types, white and purple. Purple Pikmin, yeah, they're cool, no worries. White Pikmin are where the problem is. See, the onions, like we went over, are how you reproduce Pikmin. However, they're colored red, blue, and yellow. White and purple dudes don't use them, and instead can only be acquired via special color-converting flowers. The way it works is you throw one Pikmin in, and the flower spits out one seed of the new type. The rules are each flower can only be used for 5 Pikmin before disappearing, and the flowers only appear within dungeons, nowhere in the overworld. So that means the only way to get purple and white Pikmin is to enter dungeons and convert existing Pikmin into those types, and in the case of purple dudes, it's easy enough. See, their special ability is that they're 10 times as strong as regular dudes, so they can lift heavier things, and whenever there's a case in a dungeon where purple guys are needed for that, the dungeon gives you those purple conversion flowers in advance. Otherwise, since reproducing purple Pikmin is restrictive, it'd be unfair. For whatever reason, this is not the case with white Pikmin. White dudes have a lot more responsibilities. First, they're the only ones resistant to poison, meaning if there's a poisonous wall or enemy to be taken care of, these are the guys. They're also poisonous themselves, so the best way to use them in combat is as sacrifices. Allowing an enemy to consume one deals massive damage. And finally, some treasures in the world are buried underground and need to be dug up. All Pikmin can assist in digging, but the only ones that are capable of detecting a buried object beneath them and commencing a dig are the white ones. So they're like gatekeepers to certain buried treasures. That's a lot of use for these dudes, and it'd be acceptable if it weren't for the fact that white Pikmin are not as prevalent in the world as their uses. First, the element of poison. When other Pikmin touch it, they run away in terror, and if you don't whistle to them, they die. Unlike spouts of fire or electrical tripwires and enemies which have short times of vulnerability where they can be handled with Pikmin out of their element, tubes ejecting poisonous fumes or enemies with that purple musk can't be touched by anyone else aside from these poison Pikmin. The issue is that these poison spouts are way more common than your poison guys. See, I played the game for a while, and I took as many opportunities to grow my poison population as I could, but I never really wound up with many more than 25 or so of these guys. The game never really gave as many to you as you needed all the time. So when a dungeon indicated it would contain poisonous traps, afraid any I took might end up being lost, and knowing that as soon as I entered loss became permanent, I typically take 5 to 7 white guys in max. Remember when I talked about micro losses before? Well, losing a single white Pikmin is a significant loss, not only simply because they're so hard to come by, but also because losing all Pikmin of a certain type is a way to reach a point of no return. Example, in the boss rush dungeon, the Hole of Heroes, I lost too many water-breathing Pikmin and wasn't able to recover an item sitting in the water without so many, meaning I'd need to revisit it later. When it came to the white guys, since no other Pikmin could handle poisonous obstacles, you had to take extreme care to protect them, to not use them for anything outside of their unique functions lest you risk your progress being blocked. They were by design the most valuable Pikmin. Talk about I'm not so sure about this joke, but talk about white Pikmin. You had to clutch. As long as you had one left, you'd be able to dig up treasure, which was not an unlikely scenario, but without any, you couldn't proceed. And that sucked, majorly. It sucked that poison was as much of a common threat in the dungeons and overworld as fire, but that you were never ever given the opportunity to grow as many of those guys as you could fire-resistant ones. Even worse, in one instance, in a dungeon titled The Citadel of Spiders, the game wouldn't even post on the requirements that the poisonous ones were needed even though digging was involved, forcing you to abandon a hidden underground treasure and be punished by having to do a repeat playthrough later even though you did nothing wrong. Also, causing you to lose trust in the posted asks, and always bring a couple of poison guys with you. And what's weirder is that through challenges assigning so much importance to preservation of the poison Pikmin, they invalidated a whole aspect of their design. One of the points of these dudes was that sacrificing some in a fight would poison your enemy, but this was something that was never worth the price. White Pikmin were invaluable, because without any left you could be totally blocked, so letting one of the 25 total you have just die to drop a few notches on some health, it's not worth it. Even if I lost half a set of red and yellow and blue Pikmin in a fight, these are guys I can restore in like 2 minutes as soon as I get back outside. Getting more poisonous guys means re-entering old dungeons for a total of 5 new ones at a time. Wow! But even outside in the overworld, there was an abundance of poison walls to demolish, more than electrically charged ones if I'm not mistaken, actually. Not to mention, there were buried treasures. The idea of giving different colors of Pikmin different abilities makes things fun. It comes from the adventure genre, but allows you to consider them during combat and strategy sections. But as soon as they throw poison your way, which they almost always do, that changes. Pikmin stops being a composite action-adventure RTS game, and it becomes a don't lose your poison boys game. And that's boring and dumb, and there's no reason it had to be like this. This could have been fixed one of 2 ways. 1, allow purple and white Pikmin to reproduce more seeds in the overworld, because, why not? If they're going to be exclusively used for puzzles, sure, restricting their acquisition to dungeons alone is passable. But if you're going to tell me to go demolish a wall for a whole day with a literal handful of Pikmin, get out of my face unless you're going to let me plant some seeds, point final. Or option 2, get this, you could have made poison behave more like fire. Fire spouts always have a cooldown time, where any sort of Pikmin can attack them to disable them. Fire enemies can only be taken out by fire dudes, sure, unless you trick one into walking into some water, making them vulnerable to water guys too, and it's a cool little solution to a little puzzle. The implementation of poison and poison Pikmin in this game is trash. Sorry, it's trash. It's overused, ruins many moments, and can't be justified. Or like, I don't know, they could have always provided white flowers whenever there was a level that needed poison or digging. Any of those things would have fixed it, but no. Instead, what we're left with is a game whose expectations don't match the resources and tools provided. So does this ruin the whole game? No. It kind of nullifies the whole absolute fairness in the dungeons, but when it's not included, the game burns hard and hot. Aesthetically, the game is still gorgeous. The great writing from the last game returns, but at a scale and quality that's almost unbelievable, especially for a Nintendo game. Each item and enemy has 2 sets of reports to read about. The freaking game sets up a taxonomy for its creatures. At the end of every day, you get mail from your boss and get to hear about how he's on the run from the mob until you pay off the debt. Among other unsolicited mail you receive. Jesus Christ. The game's dungeons, despite having randomness at play in their generation, do follow some sort of logical procedure for positions of enemies and obstacles that always makes for a really challenging experience. Their look, some as dark caves, others as abandoned sewers, and others as some sort of toy box world, they're all unique and cool and allow for the game to expand its content without having to add a whole new maps, which of course means more space for more treasure that is very special for the reasons discussed already. The few simple rule changes in dungeons change the game completely. Having experience in the overworld is an advantage, but there is so much more to consider down here to make it through these impressive gauntlets with as few losses as possible. What was cool was that practically every mechanic in the game had at least one dungeon section dedicated to testing the player on it, even the most seemingly irrelevant things like storing Pikmin, which is something that one of the greatest dungeons in the game, the Submerged Castle, uniquely tested you on. Originally, I set out thinking I wanted to just cover this dungeon in the video, but decided if I'm going to do this right, I'd rather give the full context for the game in a video much like this, and then follow up with a piece specifically about that one level. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. Sorry for the tease. But the inclusion of 2 checkpoints at which high scores were presented meant the game could still appeal to fans of the old game, though while it was cool to me, there were a lot of people who saw a lot of value in the pressure applied by the 30-day time limit and missed that in the sequel, finding Pikmin 2 very boring. This is something that Pikmin 3 would famously find a middle ground between, but we'll get there later. Pikmin 2, unrestricted by the same factors as its predecessor, was able to show up and fully define itself as a game. Pikmin 2 was about finding things, really interesting things, hidden both in plain sight and in the deepest depths of the darkest dungeons. Pikmin 2's removal of a global fail state meant it could just take its gloves off and beat you down with challenge after challenge, with zero consideration spent on fairness in most situations. It did, however, have one fatal flaw, which, when present, would reduce the game to something less than what it was normally. Pikmin 2 was a poisonous game, in the sense that it infected you and motivated you intrinsically to continue collecting items without regard for outcome. It played with your natural state of curiosity by rewarding you with things that you considered valuable without direct use in the game world. It was poisonous in the sense that it was permanent. Your failures could not be reset. You started as healthy as you'd ever be, and you would have to fight hard to reduce your rate of decay just enough to make it to the end of a challenge with some strength left. And it was a poisonous game in the sense that there was a lot of, well, poison. And that's how this one's gonna end. Except not really, because I have to thank, I think my Patreon tier is called Ya Boys, so I guess I have to thank Ya Boys. I guess I should have called them My Boys? Oh, that's kind of weird, actually. But I have to thank the people responsible for, I don't want to say responsible for what I'm going to do next, because I would do it anyways, but basically what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to be dropping a video, I have to make it, but I'm going to fully, go through the whole production process for a video about the Submerged castle and the water wraith in Pikmin 2, which, by the way, heads up, I had to record twice, because the first time I did it, listen to this, okay, so the first time I did it, I actually unlocked the stupid light bulb that like brightens up all the dungeons and just ruins the whole game, which I'm going to talk about in that video. But I unlocked that before I did the water wraith, and the submerged castle, and then I did the submerged castle in the light, and it made things really lame. Like, it just looks dumb. So what I did was I was smart with my saves, and I had an old save file from like a previous part in the game, and after I did the submerged castle once, which took like an hour and a half, I went back and I like reopened an old save file, and I got up to the point where I could do the submerged castle again, and I purposely did not get the light bulb this time, and I played the submerged castle a second time without the light, which was crazy, and it took forever, and that's why the whole recording, like video recording process for this video took 3 whole days, because there was a I think a Friday or a Monday, no, it was a Monday that I had off from work. It was just Friday night, Saturday all day, Sunday all day, Monday all day. I beat this game. Jeez, this game is like ridiculously long. It's crazy. Like at least 24 total hours spent. It's banan. But anyways, so not the people responsible for that, because that's what I'm going to be doing. And after that, obviously, a video about Pikmin 3. Hopefully, one video about Pikmin 3. Maybe it'll just be like I'll make like just 2 videos about each Pikmin game. I've already made 2 videos about Zelda. Oh my god. But I guess the people responsible for me not feeling as bad about having to buy resources for this crap, like this microphone that I'm talking to right now, and probably some editing software soon. Not upgrading to real stuff. I'm probably just gonna stick with Magics. But anyways, those people, stop dilly-dallying. Those people are once and for all. Jesus Christ, it's like I'm gonna kill you all after this or something. Those people are in whatever order Patreon decides to print them on my screen. Ari, Grant Whalen, oh baby yeah, Chris Broom, Zach Frazier, Christopher Young. I know a guy named Chris Young, actually. Anyway, I shouldn't say that. Nathan Walker, Tito's, the Hat-Wearing Gamer, Draz, The Daily Sam K, and Vinjock. I love you, everybody. I don't know why I'm laughing so much. You know why? It's because I just realized, oh, I have to cook potatoes. Ooh, that's 2 realizations at once. Yeah, I'm gonna turn off the microphone now, because this has gone long enough, and I'm sure this video is ridiculously long, and I guess I'll see you guys later in the Submerged Castle, and later yet in Pikmin 3. That was my neighbor. I don't know if you heard that, but she has the loudest feet I have ever heard in my life. She slams her door so hard every single day. It sounds like things in my apartment shake. I am so glad to be moving soon. Oh my god. Actually, this video might come out after I've moved. That's a fun thought. Anyways, see you guys later. Thank you for watching, and toodle doodle.